At 10 to 9, we were told by someone who was up in our control room that they'd seen pictures, satellite pictures coming over of a fire in the World Trade Center, and they asked me, what should we do about it? This was during a commercial break. I said, get the pictures on the air right away. At the time, I thought a fire in the World Trade Center is a huge story with huge ramifications. Welcome back to the program. We've got some breaking news to tell you about something we're just learning about ourselves here. Apparently, a small passenger plane has crashed into one of the World Trade Towers. This, of course, in Manhattan, New York City. These are live shots we are just getting right now from some American networks sending these up. I was just listening to an interview which was being done by an eyewitness. I'm going strictly by what this person has said, that said they saw a plane that appeared flying with some distress at a very low altitude that just collided, as you can see. He's estimating around the 80th or 85th floor of one of the World Trade Towers there. This has just happened. We don't know any reports about injuries for that matter, although we could only assume that there would be in an event like this. Not exactly sure how large the plane was. The person thought it was a commercial jet that actually collided. We can see the fire there. This is just a horrific scene, if you can imagine what is going on there right now. At the time, we thought, well, that couldn't be. There's no way a plane would have flown into a tower that big deliberately, although people were saying, well, they could see it veer right in. Well, at that point, we hadn't quite figured out what was happening, but everything changed when the second plane flew into the second tower.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, God.
There's another one. Oh, my goodness, there's another one.
This seems to be on purpose.
Oh, my goodness.
Another plane?
Now it's obvious, I think, that there's a second plane just crashed into the World Trade Center. I think we have a terrorist act of proportions that we cannot begin to imagine at this juncture.
Now, we don't have the capability to have a camera in every corner of the world, so we're doing, at that point, is getting on any broadcast that will give us the pictures. In this case, of course, the American networks will deal with any agreements, any licensing, any arrangements afterwards.
On the World Trade Center, what we have been fearing.
Chopper 5, anybody on?
What we have been fearing for the longest time here apparently has come to pass. A disastrous terrorist attack on the World Trade Center.
This is going back to Washington right now, the second front, if you will, of these terrorist attacks, as a plane had apparently collided with the Pentagon building there. We can see the fire and the crews that are there. They were evacuating that area, all the buildings around the area, obviously for their safety of people near the Pentagon, but also concerned that there could be more terrorist attacks that will continue to unfold right now. Let's, do we have any sound on this? Can we listen in?
Evacuated. Emergency services personnel were rushing to reports of several people trapped in the building. Most of the building's 24,000 people are outside of the building or in the center courtyard as emergency teams try to sort out what has happened here. There is, of course, thick black smoke billowing from the scene. There's a lot of confusion. The Defense Protective Service, which is the police force here in the Pentagon, has been urging people to get out of the building and move away from the scene so they can handle the emergency situation. Again, it appears that an aircraft of some sort did hit the side of the Pentagon, the west front, which faces sort of toward Arlington National Cemetery. It's a corridor where a lot of Army offices are located, and some people were
Well, at this point, we're trying to understand what could possibly be happening next. Because you hit a point where you think, the first tower's hit, my God, this is an incredible tragedy. Then when the second tower is hit, you're thinking that this couldn't get any worse. Then when it broadens out to involve the Pentagon, you're bracing yourself to wonder where it's going to happen next. How bad can this get? How many more people could be killed? Where will this stop? You're trying to stay ahead of a story which is a virtual impossibility when it's unprecedented and you have no idea where you're turning. So at one point, and at that point, you have to take a step back and compose yourself to try to get a handle on a story, to be able to explain it to people. Okay. Now, as I was trying to figure out what's happened here, the second of the twin towers of the World Trade Center. The second of the towers has apparently collapsed. This tragedy just continues to get worse, folks, if this could be at all possible. The second of the Twin Towers, 110-story building, has collapsed after a jet collided with the plane. This shortly after 9 o'clock this morning.
I know that in my house, I have a tape of that broadcast. I've never seen the tape. I've never even held the tape. I've never watched the tape. I've never wanted to watch the tape. Despite the fact that, without a doubt, it's the biggest story I've ever been a part of. I haven't wanted to relive it.
Second plane colliding with.
Obviously, the buildings collapsing was a huge tragedy, but what broke my heart even more, and I could see out of the corner of my eye but didn't want to acknowledge, was the people jumping from the tower. And that was something that I looked at the screen and I could see what looked like it. Nobody was talking about it at the time. But over and over again, and I have seen some of those pictures, you can see little specks, human lives jumping one after the other there. And I don't want to. That's something I don't want to relive, these people's final moments. I don't want to relive that.
And forgive me as I just try to put all the pieces together here. From what we understand, there has been only one attack in Washington itself, this on the Pentagon.
That's correct, yes.
There's a mad scramble going on behind the scenes. In front of the camera, we've just got to keep it together to try to get as much information as we can to viewers, knowing that with every minute that passes, more viewers are tuning in, and that this story just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
At the time when we were getting the eyewitness reports of what was going on, both of the Twin Towers were still standing. Since then, one of them has collapsed. A 110-story building, one of the largest buildings in the world, has collapsed after an apparent terrorist attack of a plane, what believed to be a hijacked plane that was flown directly into that building. Now, we are getting word that flights that were bound for Washington, D.C. and New York have been rerouted to Canada because air traffic has been grounded across the United States. Transport Minister David Collinette saying that they are monitoring the situation here in Canada, that we are taking security very seriously here as well. To quote the minister, that we are also here in Canada on alert for any possible attacks as well. Although it should be mentioned right now, what has happened, 2 attacks. There have been in Manhattan, one plane colliding with one Twin Tower. 18 minutes later, oh my God. Oh my God. If you can imagine the situation could get any worse, you've just seen it get worse. That was the second tower of the World Trade Center collapsing before our eyes. The second tower collapsing as rescue officials were trying to evacuate the building, trying to put the fire out that after a plane had collided there shortly before 9 o'clock this morning. Both towers at the World Trade Center, 110-story buildings, have collapsed.
What happened at the Pentagon?